There is nothing worse than untapped potentials. If you know that you're made for more, this is the place. I know that every successful person I've ever met has one thing in common. They do not let themselves fall victim to their circumstances. They figure out a way to rise above it. So join me on this journey where I help you to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business. If you're feeling stuck and you're needing some practical tools, some hope to get you to that better life, this is definitely the place for you. Hey everybody, welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. And today you get the chance to listen to my new friend, Melissa Rohlfs, who is a holistic life coach. You guys, she is so inspiring. And Melissa, I cannot wait for everybody to get a chance to get to know you better and hear your amazing story and how you're serving people. So welcome to the Unstuck Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love what you're doing.
Thanks. And hey, I want to not forget this. So you guys, those of you that are tuning in on YouTube or on Facebook and you can see her cute earrings, I was like, those are so adorable. And so she was like, they support something, right?
Yeah, they're made by survivors of human trafficking. So it's a company that's empowering survivors of trafficking, which I'm super passionate about.
Oh my gosh. So we'll make sure to put the show notes details if anybody wants to grab a pair of earrings and support, the fight against human trafficking, because it's so amazing. And that's just one small little thing that you're doing to make the world better, Melissa. Mm-hmm. And so I just want you to open up our audience to who Melissa is. Where are you serving in the world? How are you showing up? What are you most proud of these days?
Gosh, that's a good question. Well, I'm coming to you from Sunny, Arizona, which is amazing. And I have to show you this too. I'm wearing my Fearless shirt with a cactus on it.
I love it.
Because I really feel like, Lachelle, like the cactus is so strong. It's powerful. Isaiah 35 talks about, there were the barren lands in the desert and how that was replaced with joy and rejoicing. And I feel like that's my journey. Like, I feel like I went from being fearful to fearless and really kind of being stuck in my circumstance and not having a greater vision for myself, for my life, for my family, and just really kind of being bound and oppressed and stuck. But I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. I want to hear, where are you today? I want to give us some hope on where, if that's how we're feeling, because I can't wait to dive into that and hear, that story and that testimony, but also what you've done to get yourself unstuck. So where are you today? On the top of that mountain as of today, Melissa?
Yeah, I'm free. I'm not afraid. I feel like I'm living fully. Like I have this joy. I have this zest for life. I'm super excited to just show up as my authentic self and know that that's who I am. That's who God made me to be. And it's just really freeing and liberating and exciting. Like it's so encouraging to not be afraid, but to just be free to be who God made you to be. It's exciting. It's amazing.
Oh my
I have way more energy too.
Right? Oh my goodness. And it's so interesting that, I remembered we were going to talk about something along these lines. And I did a video last night in my club, my Better Club, all about this, showing up authentically on social media and how the fear and the fear of judgment and rejection, all that stuff. And it doesn't necessarily just happen in social media, right? It happens every day. I went through my entire, undergrad, high school, master's, doctorate without ever asking a question in class because I was so fearful that I was going to look stupid, right? So fear can really, really hold us back. So tell me a little bit about what that all meant to you. Tell me what your life was like and kind of take me into your shoes back when that was still something that you struggled with.
Yeah, I think I was just afraid of everything. Part of my story, Lachelle, is about 13 years, well, no, it was 11 years ago now. We had a newborn baby who wasn't sleeping through the night. We had a 2-year-old who had some undiagnosed food allergies and some sensory challenges. My husband was traveling for work. And on top of all that, I had just gotten diagnosed with PTSD from childhood trauma. So I was hot mess express. If you ever saw it, I was very angry. I was exhausted. I was living off of sugar and carbs to try to get through the day. I just felt very blah. Like there wasn't a lot of joy. There wasn't a lot of hope. I just felt very stuck and like there was no way to get out of that. And as a result, I was afraid of everything. I was afraid that something would happen to my husband or something would happen to my kids or something would happen to me. And it was just like this gripping fear and anxiety that was controlling me. And I didn't know how to get unstuck and free from that. And it was frustrating because I was also a Christian, and I knew that's not what the word says. I knew that wasn't in alignment with the faith that I believed. And so there was this tension and disconnect of, okay, this is what the word says, but I'm not living that out. And I didn't know how to do that. And it was incredibly frustrating, and shame and guilt and all of the other feelings that were on top of that.
You know, I think that one of the things that I have grown, so I think I've maybe shared this with you, but maybe not, that I decided to call this podcast the Unstuck Podcast. And then I kind of regretted it a little bit. I'm like, you know, am I going to be able to get the attention of the people I want to get attention from? And I realized that it was the perfect word, because when we feel stuck, it means that we are somewhere where we don't want to be, and we want to make an effort to get to a different place, right? And I'm curious to know, when you felt that, did you have that awareness the whole time? Like, did you know, like, this is not where I want to be? Or did it take you a little bit to have that realization? Maybe you were just going through the motions.
I mean, it was very clear that wasn't where I wanted to be. Like, that was crystal clear, but the how to get unstuck was the hardest part, because I feel like part of the journey too was, you know, like you mentioned, you know, in college I was involved, I did all these things, and I had dreamed of having this successful career. And I kind of feel like I tabled all that when we had kids. And so I felt like I had lost a part of myself, and I wasn't living up to my potential. And there was some resentment and bitterness and just other emotions surrounding that. And I was like, how do I do this? How do I make this work?
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that you mentioned that I wanted to point out as well is that you had kind of shame and guilt around that, is what you said. And so it was like you felt stuck, and you probably, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but sometimes when we're moms, right, and we feel like we not want more or we need more, and then we get the mom guilt of, well, isn't this just enough? Because I prayed for these children and now here they are, and that's not filling me up enough. Is that something that you struggled with as well?
100%, right? And then you throw in like the mom judgment and the shame that's out there on top of what I already had, and it was not. It was very.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes when we are Christians as well, right, we can get down on ourselves because we feel like by reading or praying or going to church that it's supposed to fix everything pretty quickly, and sometimes it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. But I think that sometimes we can get really down on ourselves for not being better than that. That was where I was last year when I was stuck. I was like mad at myself because like I knew better, right? I love mindset, and I love personal development, and I love the brain and all the things. And I'm like, well, why can't I get unstuck? And then I felt like a big failure, and I felt like there was something wrong with me because it wasn't working. The things that I knew weren't working. And that just made that whole cycle even worse. Is that something that you experienced as well?
100%. You just nailed it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, see, this is why we're talking, because you guys, you might be listening to this and you're like, I can totally relate to that, right? Where you're going through the motions, where things don't quite feel like this is the path that you're supposed to be on, right? You feel unsettled, and then you start to just doing what you need to survive. And you mentioned that, like maybe not taking care of your body as much. You weren't getting enough sleep. Right. And I've been guilty of that, like caffeine and more sugar. And that just makes you compound the way that you feel. Right. Yeah. And so it's like this spiral out of control. And what other things, if you had to take us down that road and help people like that are listening say, oh my gosh, me too. Like I can totally get that. Anything else that we haven't talked about from that experience and where you were when that was going on in your life?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that the thing that was blocking me was me. And it took me forever to realize that, right? Like I kept trying to blame it on, oh, it's because I'm a mom, or oh, it's because I don't have a job, or it was all of these circumstances.
Yes.
It was on me.
That is exactly where I was hoping this was going to go, because I think that is a realization that is really, really hard to have, right? Like when we realize that the good news is that it's up to us. But the bad news is that it's up to us. And so,
absolutely.
And that's the thing about this podcast and our tribe of people, is that we recognize, right, that if we want to make a better situation for ourselves, we have to own our lives and what decisions that we make and the choices that we make. And even though things have gone wrong or bad, like you mentioned a childhood trauma, you mentioned, just gosh, when you're tired, when you're not getting sleep from a baby, and then you have, special circumstances with another child, like that's exhausting in itself, right? Yeah. But you choose to rise above it. You choose to make different decisions in order to make the trajectory change. And I got to ask you, was that something that kind of happened like all at once, or was it a slow realization? Like, where did that turning point happen for you?
Oh no, it was everybody else's fault, right? Like I probably lived in that place for years. And then finally I'm like, enough. And it wasn't even for me, Lachelle, that I did it. It was more for my kids, because I am not the mom I want to be. I'm not showing up and being who I want to be for them.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have it in me at that time to do it for myself or see the value and the worth in myself. So I did it for them. And that propelled me to make the changes and do the work, really.
Yeah. Amen, right? Like if you don't find that you're in a place where you have enough self-worth for yourself to choose it for yourself, choose it for the ones that are watching you.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Do you ever literally just listen? You and I, are about the same age, I'm going to guess. And so do you remember those commercials back when we were kids that's like, I learned it by watching you, Dad. I learned it by watching you. Like when he was smoking, infomercials after school specials. And I just remember like good things and bad things. Our kids watch us, right? And so whether we realize it or not, they're picking up on stuff. And so we have to make that decision, even if it's for them to try to knock away the blame game and to be able to take accountability for our choices and to make the life that we desire, to make the decision to make the life we desire. I love that, Melissa. Okay. So you guys, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into Melissa's, heart, her brain, her experiences. And I want you, Melissa, to tell us all about how you were able to get from that point to where you are now. Because not only have you helped yourself get over that fear and the anxiety and the shame and all of the things, the bad choices of health and all the things to help your own life, but now you're helping other people's lives. So you guys, I can't wait to pick Melissa's brain on this right after a quick little break where I'm going to tell you all about this amazing thing that I've been working on that I cannot wait to share with you because it has literally changed my life and I'm ready to help you change yours. So just after a second, Melissa, we're going to get into it. Hey, lachellewieme here, and I got to ask you, are you feeling like you're always on your freaking phone and you're trying to run your business, your family's complaining about you always being on your phone, you feel like you're winging it constantly, and all you want to do is have a strategy that lets you be 100% authentic and you are literally attracting the right people to you? Oh my goodness, that was me too. And I had to figure out a system that would make that work. And I totally nailed it. I have a program all designed to help you do that too, including a chance to spend the entire day with me so I can help you write copy that attracts people, and you will literally be done for an entire year. If that sounds like it's something that you need, we totally need to talk. Go ahead and click this link and let's get started. Okay, girlfriend. Let's dive in. Okay. So you had this, you decided to stop blaming, right? And you decided that you wanted better for your kids. So take us down the path that you went through yourself to get you from where you were to where you are now. And how do you help other people do the same? Give us some amazing practical tips that we can take home today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started meeting with a life coach because I felt like I was at a place where I just needed somebody to help me sort through my life because, like I had shared, the vision that I had kind of had for myself and my life wasn't where it was in reality. And so I started meeting with a life coach, and she, ironically enough, and by God's grace, was also a therapist who had PTSD herself. So she, after a few coaching sessions, diagnosed me with the PTSD. And so we went from coaching to therapy at that point.
Yeah.
But the big kind of aha, Lachelle, was I tried medicine for the PTSD and it made things worse for me. Mm-hmm. I know one size doesn't fit all. So for me, I chose to go to a naturopath to try to seek a better way of healing and working through that. Mm-hmm. And so that's really kind of where the food came in. Mm-hmm. And she did my blood levels. She did testing and really kind of addressed some nutritional deficiencies that I had. And I feel like the food combined with the therapy were really the game changers. And I started to do some personal development, started to do some reading on my own, And I decided, you know what, these things have changed my life enough. And there are other moms who are where I was, who are stuck and they're overwhelmed and they don't feel like they are loving this.
Yeah.
And I really felt called to help them. So I went to school to become a health and life coach. And that journey totally changed and transformed me for the better as well. So now I get to help other women who are where I was.
So it sounds like there's kind of three pillars. You mentioned two, but then you kind of snuck in a third, right? So you said therapy or coaching. I'm gonna dump those in together, even though they're different. And just to clarify, you guys, from what I've understood is that coaching is really a forward thinking. Like, how do I get from where I am to where I want to go? Yes. And therapy is a lot of times just fixing the things that have been broken in your past in order for you to start fresh, right? And so, so you got some help. And then you also dove into your physical body. And then you really started to nurture your brain through personal development. Okay.
You nailed it.
Okay, cool. All right. So let's start with one of those pillars real quick. Why don't we start with the physical part, the nutritional part? What kind of things could you ask our listeners to start considering or thinking that can start to make that part of their life whole and ready to give them the springboard that they need to have a better life?
I think get really curious. I feel like the biggest thing I see with women is that they're not connected to their bodies. Maybe they're not connected with how they feel. Maybe they're not connected with how foods are making them feel. So I would say get curious and really get in touch with your body and start asking yourself, how does this food make me feel? How does, having this much of a window in between snacks, food, meals, whatever, how does that make me feel? And really just kind of get curious around what your body's telling you, because our bodies are always talking to us. We just haven't been taught to listen to them. So slow down and listen to your body, and it will tell you what it's probably been trying to tell you all along, but we just haven't been taught to listen.
Yeah. And okay, so I just had this aha moment here that I have to share with you guys. So I think that as women, we don't always talk good about our bodies or to our bodies, right? So I could sit here and I could give you a list, this long of all the things that I wish were different about my body. But it would be really hard for me to come up with a list of things that I love or that I'm thankful for. As just a natural, I think, woman, it's harder for us to do that. And so I think that we also struggle with being able to just be in true gratitude of our bodies and to be able to look at our bodies and to be able to appreciate our bodies and to just own the fact that it's our body instead of being like, I want to change this about myself or I want to change that or whatever. It's almost like we distance ourselves from that part of ourselves, if that makes any sense, right? And so if you think about it, it's like you've been pushing your body away for so long by the way you talk to it, the way that you don't appreciate it, the way that you treat it, the way that you don't want to look at it. Like imagine that's a person. Would that person want to connect with you? Heck no, because you haven't been treated very well, right? Would you be able to listen and respect what that person's trying to tell you? No, probably not, right? Because you've been pushing it away. And so I think that sometimes we have to get really clear with the fact that we've been given this body. Maybe we haven't been respecting it or taking care of it like we could, but we can always start today. And we can start looking at it and appreciating it. And actually, like how many of us can literally say that I can look in the mirror at myself and not look away? It's hard, right? And so when we can start to appreciate our bodies and give ourselves that permission to love that part of our body, we can get into connection with it and we can get more intuitive with it and we can allow it to communicate with us in a way that allows us for us to know what should I be eating? How much should I be eating? How often should I be eating? What should I be drinking or not drinking, right?
Absolutely. And Lachelle, I tell the women I work with a lot, like if you're at war with your body, nobody's winning. Like you're not winning. Your body's not winning. Nobody wins. So stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that when it comes to our bodies too, this is something I want my kids to understand is that I want them to be well-behaved because they love me, not because I'm telling them to. Right. Yeah. And that's what Jesus asked us to do as well. He wants us to love him back and listen to him because he loves us. And it's not, that's why he gave us free will. God gave us free will. And so I think that the same thing goes with our body is that when we love our body, it's going to start to change, right? Like if we love our body enough to treat it well, it's going to start changing and it's going to start loving us back. I don't know, it's just something that's really popped up with me. And I think that it's something that we have to acknowledge, especially as women. So
we absolutely do. And this morning, the shirt that I worked out in said, eat like you love yourself. And I was really thinking that same thing. Like, what does it look like? How do we eat like we love ourselves? So I think it's that respect. I think that's that honoring your body. I think it's exactly what you touched on.
Yeah. And you know, the scripture that I read this morning, it talked about just our bodies is the Lord's temple. Mm-hmm. Are we treating it that way? You know, David built this, or Solomon, built this beautiful temple, and it was adorned with all of the jewels and everything else. Is that how we're treating our temple? Probably not, right? So it all comes back to having gratitude for our body and the way it is and loving it and then treating it appropriately. And all of a sudden things are going to fall into place. But if you're looking at it in shame and if you're looking at it and treating it in shame and not appreciating it, that's kind of how it's going to be back. And so, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Anything else that you feel like you really want to talk about when it comes to our body and the way that we can start to transform the things that perhaps people are listening that can relate to you need to change?
Yeah, I think the other thing that kind of pops up as we've been talking is, you know, think of everything your body does for you. Like it gets you through your life. It gets you through your day. It allows you to carry your children. It allows you to carry your groceries. It allows you to think and to talk. Like our bodies are amazing.
Yes.
And they do so much for us. And if we could just honor and respect and appreciate them, like you said, I think that would shift a lot of things for a lot of people. Because you just can't win when you're hating and you're in that place.
I had an interview with a woman, her name is Tammy Polk, and I don't remember what podcast episode it was, but she talked about that. She said that sometimes things get taken away from us when we're not in gratitude for them. And it's not until we lose it that we had the appreciation for it. And so I think that it's just wise to try to find a way to appreciate what we have now before we lose it. And so thank you for that reminder. Okay, I would love to get into the personal development pillar that you talked about. So what are some of the key things that you started to do to nurture your brain to get you from that fear, that anxiety, the shame, all of the things that you were doing to where you are today?
Yeah, I think I was just immersing myself in how to be a better person. You know, I was reading books, I was listening to podcasts, I was doing trainings, like I was doing all of these things because I knew that people who had changed and transformed and had had success, that was a lot of what they talked about, right? Like success leaves clues. And they talked about how they were immersed in personal development and they would read. And I think being a type A overachieving woman, that feels a little weird because you're like, what? I'm going to read? It feels lazy, right? Like we have this mindset that if I read, I'm lazy or I'm slacking or I'm not hustling, I'm not producing.
Yeah.
But that's the foundation. Like we have to take care of our brain and our mindset because that's where everything flows from. So I had to shift that perception and really, you know, just be okay with reading and growing and developing. And it's interesting too, if you are a person who does personal development and you talk with people that are in personal development, you have like this amazing connection, you notice these things. And then the people you can tell that maybe aren't doing personal development, there's kind of a difference.
Oh my gosh. The energy level, you know, the connection that I have with people when I call it nerding out over this stuff, right? We can geek out over this all day long. And I think that there's something vibrationally that raises when we're really trying to come into who we are and where we're meant to be and taking those steps towards better. And I know that as an entrepreneur, one of the things that I was taught early on is that as an entrepreneur, oftentimes it's literally personal development with a paycheck because you cannot be a successful entrepreneur if you're not working on yourself at the same time. Would you agree with that?
100%, because you can have the program, you can have the platform, you can have the marketing, you can have all the skills in place.
Yeah.
But if your inner belief is not there, it's for naught. And I did that. I know. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things like, okay, so I'm going to try not to give out too many clues of who I'm talking about, but there's somebody in my life that has been literally spending like all day, every day, completely immersed with everything COVID, everything politics, everything, the things, right? Like literally all day long, every single day. And I'm just like, okay. And then, you know, she's anxious and she's, you know, got all these things. And it's like, if you took that same time and you got to know yourself and a way to be better, and maybe even threw in a little Jesus in there. Like, I wonder what kind of person that person would be at the end of 6 months when you took the same time that you were devoting towards that toxic chatter that's going on and turn it into a way for you to nourish your heart, your soul, your mind. And I don't know, right? And I think that, like,
absolutely.
I've been to, you know, when I got my John Maxwell coaching certification, like, I was in a room of, you know, a couple thousand people, and the energy was high. You can think about that. Like, if you were in a room with Tony Robbins or some of these people, right? And it's like, somebody's like, gosh, you know, isn't it like getting brainwashed? I'm like, heck yeah. I'd rather get brainwashed by that than I would with something else. And so I'm purposely exposing myself, eating it up, because I want to be a better person. And I love the fact that I get to connect with other people who are, in a quote unquote, brainwashed in the same way, right? Because it's so much fun to be enlightened and learn new things and grow, right?
And change, right? Like, that's the benefit of doing all this. It's not just to take it in. Information plus application equals transformation, whereas information minus application equals frustration. Yes. I'd rather be transformed than frustrated.
Oh my gosh. I say that one more time because I want people to get that. Repeat that.
Information plus application equals transformation. Information minus application equals frustration.
100%, you guys. It's all about the action, right? And one of the things that I've noticed in people that are successful and things that I've chosen to do in my own life is you have to have, number one, the desire for better. So that's where the stuck comes in, right? Like, I don't want to be here. There's something not right. Maybe it's, I don't even know what that is, but I know I don't want this, that desire. And then we have to make the decision to do whatever it takes to get there, whether that be surrounding ourselves with a new circle. Maybe it's learning new skills. Maybe it's starting to read when we didn't read before. We're committing to do what it is that needs to be done. And then we do the things that we said that we're going to do. And if you can follow that path, there's no stopping you. There's no stopping you. Would you agree?
100%. The thing that usually stops you is yourself. Let's be really honest.
Yeah.
Because I did that. It's sabotage is really what it is.
So tell me a little bit about what that looks like, self-sabotage, and what you've done to try to, like, specifically overcome self-sabotage, if it's anything that we haven't already discussed.
Yeah. So really, the women I work with, there's three main forms of self-sabotage.
Okay.
One is something else always seems more important. And I fell into that so easily as a new mom, right? Like, everything was more important than myself and my health and my well-being. Like, it was all about the kids.
Yes.
So that's one form. The other form is you're desiring acceptance. So you might do some things that aren't in alignment with your core values. You might make choices that you wouldn't normally make because of who you're with, and you're desiring their acceptance. And then the third one is, I've been good, I deserve a little extra. And this falls into place a lot of times with, you know, if it's a habit, whether it's shopping or sugar or wine or whatever, we think we need this reward. So those are kind of the three main forms. But for me, Lachelle, my big one was all about the kids and putting myself on the back burner.
100%. Oh my gosh, same. And what's interesting is that my entrepreneurial journey started when I started my first side business, which had to do with skincare. And the hilarious thing was that at the time, I wasn't even washing my face. So God put that in my life out of nowhere, legit, like out of left field. But it was so interesting because as I dived down and unpeeled that onion, I realized that I wasn't washing my face out of two reasons. Number one, I didn't feel worthy of the time that it took. And number two, I didn't feel worthy of the money it cost.
Yeah.
And once I had, it wasn't about washing my face. It was about all of a sudden accepting the worthiness that I was worthy enough of doing the things, that things clicked, and all of a sudden everything started to change. And so once you can find that way to find that worthiness within yourself, that you deserve, to model that for our kids, right? And that's what you were saying with yourself. And so what tips do you have for people to overcome that self-sabotage?
I think the first thing is become aware of it. Like, so many times we're going through the motions, we're flying through life, trying to do all the things. We're not even aware of what we're doing. So if you can slow down and just, again, get curious and observe, where am I maybe sabotaging? Where are these things coming up that are distracting me from my goals, from my purpose, from my call, from whatever, and really kind of get curious about that. And then you can do the digging, like you said, and figure out what's going on. What is this really about? And that's where the work is. That's where the transformation happens.
Yeah.
You acknowledge, we get to the why, and then we can make the change.
Yes, I love that. And that kind of brings in that third pillar that was the coach that you mentioned, the coach or the therapist that you got help from. And I think that so oftentimes we think we can do it on our own. But remember, you guys, that things don't have to cost things. They can be an investment in your future. They are investment in your kids' future. And so if you can get yourself, and I'm a Dave Ramsey coach, so I'm frugal as frugal can be. But it has to be the mindset of thinking about it is this a cost or is this an investment? And what is the cost of me not investing in this down the road? And if you can acknowledge that the investment is worth the cost, there should be no stopping you, right?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because we don't have any issues going to Target and dropping how much, right? But when we come to, or maybe even hair, we spend all this money to make ourselves look good and feel good, but we're not dealing with the inside. And that's where that transformation is. So you're kind of on this hamster wheel of spending to try to make yourself feel better, buying Target and doing the hair things and going to gyms and doing all these things. And you could just spend it on like a coaching package and get the internal transformation, and that would affect how you show up externally instead of buying all that stuff.
100%. People don't even recognize me from the inside from 5 years ago. And that's the thing that I love. This is a visual example, right? So I decided I was worthy enough to wash my face. I decided to finally take care of myself. And I've always been somebody who, gets done up to go anywhere because that's just what I needed to do to fit in or be accepted or feel confident, right? And all of a sudden, like my mindset started to change because all of a sudden I was starting to work on my worthiness. And now you might just not recognize me at Target because I look semi-homeless sometimes. And that's okay because I'm comfortable enough in my own skin to do that. Whereas before I was trying to cover up the realness in me in order to be accepted by myself and others, honestly. And so I think that that's the thing. When you can start to change your mind, you can start to show up, and all of a sudden you're going to look even more beautiful because you have the posture behind you. You have the light of the Lord inside of your heart that's completely beaming from every direction, right? Because you've worked on the inside. And I love that so much. Okay.
And I think we're taught it's an outside game.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the misconception is. It's not an outside game. Because I used to look at these successful women on stages and think, oh my gosh, if I could get my hair like that, or if I could dress like that, or if.
Right.
And then I'm like, you know what? That's not even, I didn't even like that. I wanted her confidence. And that's an inside thing.
Oh my gosh. 100%. Oh my gosh. I love that. And that's just it, you guys. Like, imagine, I just got goosebumps because imagine that's you. Like, whatever that is for you. Maybe it's on stage someday. Maybe it's just literally walking through Target and somebody looks at you and like, dang, I wish I had that confidence. It has nothing to do with what you're wearing. It has nothing to do with what your hair looks like. That's what you're showing off. Like, how would that feel? How would that feel? And then think about how your daughters are watching that, and that impacts the way they think about themselves. And they start showing up in the world that's steps ahead of where you started because you had to do all that work, right? And then think about your granddaughter and how all of that changes just because you started to work on what was between your ears, right? How cool is that?
It's so powerful. It's incredibly powerful. And it's exciting because it changes generations. That's what changes legacies. That's where curses are broken. That's where things are changed from a generational perspective.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Okay, Melissa, I could talk to you all day long. Like, this is so much fun. Let me give you this opportunity to mention anything that we haven't had a chance to talk about. Is there anything else on your heart that you just need to make sure our audience hears from you before we call this a day?
I just want women to know that anything is possible. You are not stuck. You are not a victim. You are more than a conqueror, and you have everything you need inside of you. And sometimes we just need somebody to come alongside us and help draw that out, because I had all this inside of me and I didn't know that it was there. And so it's just a really beautiful experience to get unstuck and find that freedom, because it's there for you too.
Oh my gosh. I love it. And like you said, it's just drawing out what's already in you. And so even if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have any of that in me, I want to know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Everybody has certain gifts inside of them. And sometimes it just takes some of us to wear off a little of that extra tarnish that's been sitting there building up over the last years, right? And so somebody like Melissa can come alongside of you and help you scrape that tarnish off and start to shine that beautiful soul that you have inside of you. Because everybody, that's one of my giftings. I really think that is just really recognizing the potential in other people. And I have not met a lost cause yet. Right? All right, girlfriend. So I always ask my guests to give our audience one coaching question to think about and ponder so that they can move themselves from where they are today to where they want to be until we meet again.
So I'm asking a question.
Yes. What question do you want people to think of to help them move forward?
What is possible for you? Mm-hmm. Because I think so many times we focus on what's not possible. So shift that and ask yourself what is possible.
I love that. I love the candidness of me asking this question because I trust that whatever comes up intuitively is exactly what our audience needs. And so you guys, I want you to take Melissa and her expertise and her heart and her journey, and I want you to let that resonate with you and marinate in your heart and know that you are capable of so much more and that you do not have to settle for stuck. Melissa, I'm going to make sure that we have all of the information about how to find you, follow you, work with you, all of the things in the show notes that people had the chance to be inspired by you even more. And I just want to thank you so much for showing up today and bearing your heart and your vulnerability and all of the tips that you gave us.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome. I love the conversation. And as you said, we could do this all day.
I know. All right, girlfriend, have a great day. You guys have a great day too. Thank you so much for listening to the Unstuck Podcast. I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. And don't forget to check out the show notes if you want to get into my private club, the Better Club, to be able to learn better ways to be better, do better, and have better. So until next time, keep showing up. Let's get unstuck together. Have a great day.